With this, now we come to the final session for this segment, and we have with us Dr. Karan Thakur, Vice President, Operations and Communications at Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals. He will share his views on future of mindfulness, writer and policy expert on healthcare and an alumnus of National Law University, Delhi. He specializes in the area of hospital operations, project management, healthcare policy, public-private partnerships, human resources. Over to you, Dr. Karan.
Hi, thank you so much, Vrinda. I just request you to pull up my presentation if that's possible, please.
Sure, I'll just do that.
Yeah, so as we begin this conversation about the future of mindfulness at the workplace and in wellness as a whole, I'd just like to step back and thank the organizers for first conceptualizing this unique concept around mindfulness and how this can really create an impact for individuals, for employers and employees. And as we begin, I'd just like to quote one of my most favorite philosophers that I often refer to, in fact, probably daily, is Marcus Aurelius and his meditations. And I refer to book 4, verse 4, where he talks about man seeks retreats for himself in the country, by the sea, in the hills. And you yourself are particularly prone to this yearning. But all this is quite unphilosophical. When it is open to you at any time you want to retreat into yourself. No retreat offers at any time something as quiet and that gives so much relaxation as does your own mind and puts you to complete and immediate ease. So constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourselves. And this was, mind you, written over 2000 years ago. And it just shows the power that we have within us, that we can apply to our lives, professional, personal, and make a difference. And so I just, as the previous speakers have brilliantly outlined to us, what you can do at the workplace to make employees more mindful and also make them more mindful about the entire practice of mindfulness and how it can impact them and change their lives, helps us to now segue into what the future holds for mindfulness in the larger realm of wellness. Can you just change the slide, please? So this brings us to this question about, so what is mindfulness when we put it up against wellness? Well, some might say mindful is wellness. They are quite similar interchangeable terms. Others might think that mindfulness is somehow in some ways greater or better than wellness. Others might think, well, no, that is just a very small part of wellness and therefore wellness is larger in terms of its ambit and mindfulness becomes a part of it. These are some of the paradigms that one discusses when you look at mindfulness and wellness and therefore try to chart the future. The next slide, please. But I think what is required is to step back and look at both of these in some sort of granularity as widely defined as possible though. Wellness includes the physical, mental, psychological aspects which HR practitioners and organizations have done fairly well in terms of health checks, in terms of off-sites, in terms of physical fitness routines. These have been done, and thankfully so, in the past 10 years or so to become sacrosanct part of any program of engagement between an organization and their employees. But if you look at what is mindfulness, mindfulness is actually the whole of the person approach. Yes, it includes all the aspects of physical, mental, psychological aspects of a person, but then it actually ties this all together into a whole of the person approach, as I would like to call it. And that really gives us, the mindfulness as we know it today. Next slide, please. Therefore, the need for a new paradigm. And this new paradigm is that mindfulness in wellness and wellness is mindfulness. We cannot separate out the two and expect them to operate as independent silos. And as was referred by the speakers previously, it has become very much part of the entire package that is there for any employer to offer to its employees for changing how we look at what wellness can mean. And this needs to be done in a secular tradition, non-religious tradition, non-judgmental way of what people need in terms of their mindfulness for themselves. Therefore, it needs to be organization-wide, yet it needs to be personalized. It needs to be non-judgmental, yet it needs to understand what are the needs of a person who undergoes a mindful practice or wants to learn more about it. Next slide, please. And therefore, what this would include is an entire relook at what we see as our approach towards wellness packages towards employees, or even how we ourselves look at mindfulness. I think there is a need to relook the Maslow hierarchy on social needs and wants. We have never included mindfulness in those social needs that we have. We've looked at physical needs, we've looked at economic means, we have looked at social acceptabilities, we have looked at our own standing, our own self-esteem, but we've never looked at how mindfulness plays an important role in this entire hierarchy of the human need. And therefore, as practitioners, HR practitioners, as any type of practitioners in any organization, we must tell people that mindfulness is important in your entire sociological needs as you put it out. So please look, where can you put in mindfulness, because it is that important in the entire new hierarchy of needs. The second is we need to look at the fact that we live in a fast-paced life, yet we are asking employees, friends, family members to slow down. And sometimes that can look jarring, because somebody can look at us and say, well, you know what, I'm inundated with emails, I've got phone calls, I've got multiple time zones that I operate in and within, and here you are talking about slowing down, about keeping the pace at which you can really keep up. And there is a conflict that we need to resolve, because the slow movement in the fast-paced world is what we need to teach people, and becoming more mindful by letting go of the earlier paradigms of multitasking, of having multiple screens and managing multiple things at one time, has proven to be both detrimental to one's own mental health and well-being, and also detrimental to the larger productivity of the organization. So a new movement is needed within this wellness space, which takes into account the fact that the slow movement would need to keep up the fast world, would need to keep up with the slow pace of what human beings are actually meant to do. And the other thing is about now versus wherever, whenever. In this new hybrid world, there are questions about, do you need to be present here today, or are we talking about you can do this whenever, wherever? And I think as Prachi was highlighting what they've done at IBM, where you could be anywhere in the world, but you could still come into this space of mindfulness. I think that is the way to go. And yes, as economies and workplaces and other institutions open up and we start face-to-face interactions, it would be important that we meet when we can, but that should not be a handicap for including mindfulness in the wellness paradigm. Next slide, please. So therefore, what is it that we need to do? One is that we need to think of the collective. And the collective can mean a collective as an individual and the collective as an organization. The second is we need to look at mindfulness to achieve freedoms, both to ensure that the objective of the institution versus the objective of the individual are met through mindfulness. We need to integrate all of these practices of wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, and well-being along with mindfulness into one organized program. Second, we need to be in person, but also look at within the person. So HR practices need to be mindful about the fact that we need to be better, we have to have better understanding of what's happening within a person to create a mindfulness program within the larger wellness realm. Today it's COVID, tomorrow it could be anything else, as was spoken and referred to earlier. Therefore, the need to prepare today for the next crisis, hopefully it does not happen, but inevitably it will. And therefore, the need to build resilient organizations, which can only happen through mindfulness. And therefore, the importance of mindfulness within the wellness. Next slide, please. And the last bit here is about measuring success. Our older paradigms of checking, measuring success, where you do 2 mindful or you do 2 health checks a year, or you do 3 mental health sessions a year per employee, will not do. We need to make sure that we have newer tools to measure success. And I'm very happy that Monk at Work is actually working on such tools, which should become very much part of our regular practice, assessments, and training. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd just like to bring this to the end. And I would like to thank the organizers once again for having me here. And I am sure that as our tribe grows, the mindfulness revolution will also grow. And we will all create organizations where people are happily mindful rather than having to do this as a chore. Thank you so much.